Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And you know, I'm not saying that I'm a Swami by any means, but I am saying it's very curious to me that I cover a lot of information, and it seems like as soon as I cover the information, bam, we get released court docs that go over the information that I just covered. So I did a video last week for the members when I was diving through those reports, and I was able to locate how to see where we compare all of the people in the case to all the evidence in the case. And that's why I was so adamant about, people that keep claiming Jack D and Jack Showalter and Connor Chestnut and all these people. I mean, they need to look at the evidence in the case, what was compared against the evidence in the case. And I realize people will make the arguments, well, yeah, just because they didn't match that evidence doesn't mean they weren't guilty. Right, but if we're going to say that Brian Koberger doesn't match the evidence, therefore he's not guilty, then why would we turn around and use the exact same argument against all of these guys? Especially when, in my humble opinion, not one of them is capable of committing a crime like this, and they don't have the experience to do it, and it's just ridiculous in my mind to even think that they could have been part of this because of the manner in which this crime went down. This was a hit, man. This was a hit. This was a 4-minute hit by several individuals that have no absolute emotions that went in there and did a hit. Like these people, these youngsters weren't even people. I mean, left their mark, made their point, and got out of there. I mean, that's just plain as day to me. I don't know why nobody else can see it. And then when you look at the actual record of people that were involved around these victims, and we see what happened with the actual people that was actually involved in criminal activities that was directly related to these folks, nobody talks about it but Pav. Now, everybody else will try to make up, oh, maybe the victims were confidential informants and they were doing this and that, with absolutely nothing to back it up. It's just making it up. When there's documented proof of people around this case that are documented to have been dealing with very bad people, it's documented that they got deals right before this, and it's documented that after those deals, there's some things that went down, and we've gone through it in detail. But when we start talking about all the information that we're uncovering and then talking about how these court docs are unsealed, it's almost perplexing to me. I mean, how close to talking about things and things being unsealed that this stuff happens. It's kind of weird at this point. Let me know your thoughts at the end of this video. Seeing this new unredacted report number 7, where they go through and they just unmask everybody, and it tells you about all of this evidence, 3, 4, the fingernail swabs, the victims. And then it gives you the breakdowns. Well, before, all of this was redacted. But it tells you that Maddie, Kaylee, Jack, Bethany, Dylan, John Showalter, Cole Berenberg, Jose Cruz were all excluded from being contributors to this mixture. And then it continues down here. Look here, Jack, Showalter, Berenberg, and Cruz are excluded. Jack, Showalter, Berenberg, Cruz are excluded. Then it gets to over here where they got these inconclusive results, and all of these people are not under the fingernails, especially Ethan Chapin. Look, 3.33 means it's a 1 in 3 chance that it's Ethan's DNA rather than an unrelated individual randomly selected from the population. That's anything from 1 to 10 is unable to be excluded, but anything from 1 to 10 is an exclusionary number. I mean, it's ridiculous. So none of these people, including Cole, Ethan, Xana, Bethany, Jack Showalter, Jose Cruz, Dylan Mortensen are contributors to the mixture of the DNA under Maddie's fingernails. But it's just very interesting to me that they just happened to unseal these reports and show us this finally. And then when we go down here, the other report I've been going over religiously, report number 26, which was a report where they say they matched Koberger to the 1.1, 5.37 octillion. But he's been, y'all know I've just recently put this out, excluded. He was excluded from all the other evidence in the case. They finally put out that report. Blows my ever-loving mind that they put this out right as I'm covering it. That's not all. They also put out unredacted report 15, showing all of the people that they compared against all the evidence in the case from here to here. These are the victims. They compared more than these, actually. They also compared Showalter, Berenberg, Chestnut, Dylan and Bethany, but Chestnut, Berenberg, and Showalter are all in the D2 investigations list, so they never pop up in this because this is case number 4843. You have to look for their code, which is 4870. But it's just amazing to me. They put all this out, and last week I do this video. You know, I'm almost giddy because now that I've taught myself all this stuff about this DNA, I now have some interesting things I can point out. Sooner or later, somebody's going to look at this work and go, wow, we really need to do something because this guy's exposing everything. But I now know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they have compared these three, where are we at? These three to almost every piece of evidence, if not every piece of evidence in the case, and cleared them. S1, S2, and S17. All right, S1 and S2 is Jack Showalter, Cole Berenberg. S17 is Jack DeCore. 17, DNA buccal swab, Jack DeCore. So as all the evidence is tested going forward, they test those three against everything. So people that claim that Showalter, DeCore, or Berenberg are somehow guilty of this, and they have no valid reason to ever claim that they don't believe Brian Koberger did it because the evidence doesn't show it, and then try to blame those guys because they were tested against every piece of evidence in this freaking case. And they're not unknown male B. They're not L5. Their fingerprints were tested against L5. They were tested against 1.4, Q1.1, all the fingernails. I mean, the blood on the glove. They were tested against all the evidence in the case. Even thoroughly tested against the fingernails underneath Ethan's fingers, which it seems like they went through some, and Xana's fingers. So they went through some extra things on Xana and Ethan's fingers. But also, now that I know how to do this, watch this. When I go to report number 13, where they took the buccal swabs of all of these guys, including Henry Clark, Kenneth Anderson, Donald McDonald, Mason Barstow, Jeremy Reagan, Coy Nguyen, Derek Abenganya, Patrick Butner, Quer Jallerbu, James Deskins. We can cross every one of these off the list as well, along with Connor Chestnut. Because once they got their buckles, they tested them against everything in the case as well. And let me show you. I thought that they just never went through with creating their profiles. I was incorrect. When you get down here to starting right here, 4843, 4843, these are items of evidence. Oh, no. Okay. I thought it was going to do the face on me. Here we go. Nope. Where are they at? This is a very long report, it turns out. Okay, right here. E41 through E50. All 4843. This is 4407, different case. But E41 through E50. 41 through 50 is all the people I just said at the top of this report. So we can identify every one of them by their number. Clark 41, Anderson 42, McDonald 43, Barstow 44, all of these guys. And it's really kind of interesting when you go digging through this stuff. When we get down here, so they create their profiles, but they go even a little bit further with all of these guys. Okay, we get here. This is Q9.1. This is Xana Kernodle's left fingernail. Now, it's interesting to me that they were really wanting to clear people from Xana's left and right fingernails, because it starts right here, number of contributors 2. And you can see Q9.1, they put V8 as a known contributor. V8 is the DNA blood card of Xana herself. And then the secondary contributors, they start with E41, which was the first guy on our list. And then they go through and there's no registered DNA from him. So they go to E42. They run every one of these guys against Xana's fingernail on her left hand, I believe. And I'll just skip through it because they do each one individually, which I find very interesting. E45, I mean, they go through every single one of them on 9.1. 9.1, E47, and they're all zeros. We got E49. So they come up with nothing. E50. And when they get to E50, then it goes to, look at this, S6. S6 is S6 from the Idaho State Police investigation, DNA swab of Connor Chestnut. So once they do this and they run them through STR mix against evidence, at that point, the lab tech is able to go through, take their DNA, and exclude them from all the other evidence in the case. So you can bet Jack DeCore, Jack Showalter, Connor Chestnut, and everybody on this list has been compared to every piece of evidence in the case as it relates to DNA. So again, they run Chestnut against it and nothing. So they continue on. They go to 10.1, which is Xana's other fingernail, and they do the same thing. They go from 41, and then they just keep on testing every single one of those dudes. And I mean, they were like, we're gonna see if one of these guys match Xana's fingernails. Now that goes to Maddie's. Hang on. Okay, so it stops here with Connor Chestnut. And then it gets to Maddie's 13.1, and that's where things, for some reason, don't run quite as well. Now, they've got 3 contributors in there, and they run them all as the unknown is 2, which they later determined that it's actually Kaylee's, but you can see under 3 where they're running all these, they start with 41, and they just keep on going through every one of these guys. 49. $50. S6, all the way down to Connor Chestnut. So, I mean, I try not to say anything to all these clickbaiters when they continuously make up their videos and make up all their conspiracies around the frats and Jack D and Jack Showalter and Chestnut. But if they really listened to the interviews and they really looked at the evidence in the case and they look at all the evidence that was compared against the evidence, then I mean, they would have no right to accuse any of those people any more than they would have a right to accuse Brian Kohberger, because they've all been excluded from the same evidence. But now we get into what really matters, because when we get to, say, Q23, all right, Q23 is blood swab from above the stairwell, Kaylee and Maddie. So Q23 is marker 27, lab item 23. So this is the above the north stairwell between the first and the second floor. We always thought it was 90% Kaylee, 10% Maddie, just like they say in the report. But watch this. Right? They have it as a two-person mixture, 89% Kaylee, 11% Maddie. But let's go up to the top here. When they go through on 23, you can see they've got Kaylee major, Maddie minor, but then they exclude all these people in this report as contributors to this DNA. Now, why do you suppose they would have to exclude a bunch of people for this DNA if it's major Kaylee, minor Maddie? You guessed it. When you go through the Q24, Q23 right here, well, when you go through and you look at this report, you go to 4843, there's Q24, 4843, Q23, total nanograms of DNA, 100. Quantity of Ys, 0. All right, looky there. It really is just Kaylee and Maddie on 23. There's no Y DNA chromosomes. They got one right. Now, what about item 24, though? Item 24, 25.6 octillion. That's the, I just noticed that. That's the only one I've seen that was octillion on one of these matches. That it's 100% Maddie Mogan's DNA. Look, they haven't excluded anybody from that. It should be single source Maddie. Remember, item 24 is actually sample number 41, which was all this blood on the stairwell going from the third to the first, or third to the second floor. The switchback came back 100% Maddie. We've talked about this one many times. This is lab item 24. So this should be just 100% Maddie. They're running it as one contributor. Is that what happened? When we go to 24, we see something a little bit different. Item 23, here is item 24 right here, 4843. Look at all these picograms. You can tell with all that blood, you would get a pretty good sample, 1150. But in that 1150, boom, there is Y chromosomes. There is a male mixed in with that mixture with Maddie. So when we go to 24, okay, so remember we talked about 23. That was Kaylee and Maddie, two-person mixture. Look, they got it right. It didn't have any Y chromosomes in it. So, I mean, I can absolutely trust the results of that one. Then again, or can I? Because remember, item 23 up here goes all the way down to right here. DNA mixture, Kaylee, Maddie, but then they want to exclude a bunch of males from the mixture. Now, if there's no Y chromosomes in the mixtures, why are they going through and excluding a bunch of males from 23? Doesn't make any sense. And it makes even less sense when you think about item 24, because they don't exclude anybody from this one. But then we go to 24. Q24, It's got Y chromosomes in the DNA, but they put it as one contributor. Ignore the Y chromosome, run it against Maddie and get 25.6 octillion. Okay, it's 100% Maddie. It's not 100% Maddie though, because unless Maddie's got Y chromosomes, which we know she doesn't. So why do they not want to run this male against suspects? They know that's a perpetrator. Why don't they want to run it against suspects mixed in with her blood? Blows my mind. They need an audit. Then we go down here to everybody's favorite, Q30. Now we know what Q30 is. This is unknown male B on the handrail. Unknown male B on the handrail. And it blows my ever-loving mind because the number of contributors in unknown male B is 3. 1971 in the first part. Look at all these DNAs. People thought that's degraded DNA. That's why they didn't run it, Bob. Yeah, right. 1971 picograms, 41, 21. I mean, you're telling me you can't test this? That seems to be more than other samples when I look at that. But anyway, you can see that they actually run because there's more of these than in most. There's extra boxes. So you can bet what they're doing is they're going through and they're comparing all those people to the number one contributor in this. So you can absolutely say that Showalter, Decor, Barenberg, Chestnut, and all the other people whose DNA is listed on this sheet, they weren't unknown male B. Who are these contributors though on 2 and 3? Now this is what does kind of make me a little bit mad when I listened to that hearing yesterday that I played with Ann Taylor. And I don't know if is it the defense team's fault? It's the defense team's fault because when the judge said, obviously I know it threw her off when he cited Turvey's report and said, well, it could have just been more than one. Maybe he had help. And that must have thrown her off. But when he said, if you're not going to say it was from an earlier event in the house.
If you assume that blood was related to the victims and not some earlier event in the house.
At that point right there, she should have chimed up and said, well, Judge, are you saying an earlier murder in the house? Because it's not like it was just one person's blood in the sample. It had 2 other contributors in there. So are you saying that this is like a weekly thing in that house? Is that what you're claiming? I mean, that should have been the response. Then it goes down to 31.1. 31.1, they say 2 contributors, 99 and 1. What was 31.1? Let me figure it out. All right, item 31.1 is marker D. Right here on the handrail where that White Claw box was right here. So it had to be done as somebody walked down the stairs and swiped it. But that is coming back to Ethan, 99%. So that's 31.1. And look here, it's 968 octillion times more likely if it's Ethan. So, I guess I did miss some of these octillions in here. But there's that one. Now, 37.1 and 37.2, those are male C. They never did identify male C because this was blood that they found at Jack D's house. And it doesn't match anybody in the crime, doesn't match any of the victims, so it's likely just blood that had nothing to do with a crime. But then you got 38 and 39. This is kind of interesting. Check this out. Oh, you can see right here, 39. All right, this is blood from the Queen Road Apartments, Jack Showalter's apartment. And you can see they have number of contributors, 1, DNA amounts 822 picograms, which is a ton. Mixture proportions, they say it's 100%. You know, I don't know how we can trust them, but there's no way to tell by looking at the chart because Jack Showalter is a male, so it's going to have Y's in there. But it is kind of interesting when you look right here. M2024870S1. See, that's Jack Showalter. See, now that we've got all these cheat codes, we can just look and see exactly what they're doing in these things and know exactly who everybody is that they're testing. It's kind of neat. So we know that that's Jack Showalter that they're testing against the blood from his apartment, and it was overwhelmingly Jack Showalter. So that's like, I think they said in the nonillions. But then we go to 40.4. Well, we know what 40.4 is. 40.4 is the glove. Number of contributors, 2. Quite a bit of DNA, look, 669 and 28. I would think, you know, you got a glove sitting out there with 2 people's blood in it. That, I mean, it's got to be of some value. Or are you saying people just are going around hurting people there consistently? And all they do is test a bunch of people against it. So we go back up here to 40.4. .1, which they don't have in this report, was determined to be from an unknown male. They tested against all of the people that they have in the case, y'all. 40.4, male D is the same male from 40.1. So we know that 40.1 and 40.4, they're both found on the glove. This one is also male D. He's a potential major contributor, but we know that there is a minor contributor. It says no conclusions can be made regarding the minor contributor, which I find that to be freaking ridiculous. They didn't even try, apparently, to run people against it. And it seemed to me like if they had enough in there to make it a 2-person mixture, they should have run people against it, because even ones we know are 2-person mixtures, they put them as 1 and they run people against it. So somebody needs to really take a deep, hard look at this lab. And then it talks about these other samples that are too degraded to be able to even test sufficiently. And then at the bottom here, you can see it says major unknown male B, DNA profile obtained from item 30. The unknown male C, DNA profile obtained from item 37.1. This is from Jack D's apartment. And the partial unknown male, male D, DNA profile obtained from item 40.1 are not eligible for entry into the combined DNX CODA system. I can understand male C because that's the totally other house with no connection to the crime. But male B and male D should have absolutely been run through CODIS, and they know it. And there's no doubt about it. But it's interesting when you got these cheat codes, what you can look at. Please let me know your thoughts on everything that I discussed in this video, because it is just perplexing to me how we go through this stuff and then they unseal the court docs and it's just what we went through. I mean, is it a coincidence? I guess, but according to the Crime Talk lawyer,
there are no coincidences in criminal law.